All right, let's talk about something that absolutely blew up in the wrestling world. We're diving into the Raja Jackson attack, a moment where a wrestling match went from a performance to a legit, scary assault. So what on earth really happened?
Just to set the stage for how wild this gets, look at this. Dave Meltzer, if you follow wrestling, you know exactly who he is. For him to call this the worst thing he's ever seen in the ring, that is not hyperbole. That tells you this went way, way off the rails. We are not talking about a storyline here. This was real.
Okay, so what actually happened? Let's break down the attack itself, the moment that had everyone talking.
So, the setting is a Knox Pro Wrestling event. Raja Jackson loses his match to another wrestler, Syko Stu. But the bell rings, and that's when things get ugly. Truly ugly. Jackson just seems to snap. He starts landing real punches, slams Syko Stu to the mat, and just keeps wailing on him, right on his head. It got so bad that other wrestlers had to jump in the ring to physically pull him off, and in the middle of all that chaos, the Syko Stu wrestler looks like he's completely out cold.
All right, so who are these two guys at the center of this? You really got to know the players involved to get the full picture.
Okay, and this is where it gets really interesting. On one side, you've got Raja Jackson. He's not just any wrestler. He's the son of UFC Hall of Famer Quentin Rampage Jackson. Yeah, that Rampage Jackson. So you have MMA royalty in the ring. And on the other side is Syko Stu, a professional wrestler named Stuart Smith, who unfortunately ended up as the victim in this whole thing. You can see why the whole Rampage Jackson's son angle made this story just explode online.
And as soon as the footage hit the internet, everyone was asking the same thing. Is this real? Like a real assault? Or is this just an incredibly well done work? Part of the show. With wrestling, it's hard to tell sometimes, right? Well, the answer seems to be a little bit of both. It all points to this idea that wrestling insiders call a work that went wrong.
So let's just pause for a second. If you're not deep into the wrestling lingo, you need to know this term, a work. A work is just anything that's planned, anything that's part of the script, it's the performance. And understanding that idea is totally key to figuring out how the Raja Jackson and Syko Stu situation fell apart so badly.
So check this out. Reporter Sean Ross Sapp over at Fightful did some digging, and what he found was that at first, this whole post-match thing was planned. The initial confrontation was supposed to be a spot, a staged moment for the crowd. But, and this is the huge but, here's where it went completely off script. Sapp's reporting says that Raja Jackson, for real, legitimately knocked Syko Stu out. And those follow-up punches, the heavy ones to the head, totally not planned. That's the moment the work ended and the Raja Jackson attack began for real.
So what happens when the show stops and the injuries are real? Let's look at the fallout from this, which was immediate and serious.
This immediately turned into a real medical emergency. The wrestler Syko Stu was rushed to the hospital, and for a while there was just silence. Nobody knew how badly he was hurt, and you could feel the entire wrestling community just holding its breath, waiting for any kind of news.
And then, finally, an update. And guess who it came from? Rampage Jackson himself, the father of the guy who threw the punches. He got online and told everyone that Syko Stu was awake and stable. And man, I think everyone who saw that video just breathed a huge sigh of relief. But Rampage didn't just give a health update. The UFC legend had to speak out about his son's actions. And what he said? Well, it added a whole other layer to this and made things even more complicated. So according to Rampage, there was some backstory here. Apparently, his son, Raja, got hit by his opponent before the match when he wasn't expecting it. And then someone told Raja he could get his payback in the ring. So even Rampage Jackson thought this was all going to be part of the show, just another work. But he didn't use that as an excuse, not at all. He came right out and said it was bad judgment on his son's part. He was super clear that no matter what happened beforehand, the way Rampage's son, Raja Jackson, reacted was absolutely the wrong way to handle it. And you could really feel the concern coming from him as a father. He questioned if pro wrestling was even the right path for Raja. He said he was worried about his own son's health, and he made a point to also express concern for Mr. Smith, for Syko Stu. It was a pretty heavy statement to have to make.
It really leaves you with a big, tricky question, right? The whole point of pro wrestling is to blur the line between real and fake. That's part of the magic. But what happens when that line doesn't just get blurred, it gets completely erased? How do you protect the performers when the performance becomes a real-life fight?
So yeah, a crazy story all around. If you want to get the clear-cut details on more stories that everyone's talking about, definitely subscribe to the channel. We'd love to have you. Thanks for watching.